We are discussing parliamentary reform in the context of democracy, and I'm trying to remember what is the definition of democracy, and the most popular one is, of course, the one given by Abraham Lincoln, that it is government of the people, for the people, by the people. I mean, you can rearrange it as you like. I think because the topic actually has another term that is autocracy. I was trying to find out what is the meaning of autocracy, and I thought perhaps autocracy means just the opposite of democracy, is when the government is no longer a government of the people, for the people and by the people. It may sound the same, but the spelling is different. It becomes government that is of the people, OFF, force the people, FORCE, and with all kind of scandal now, you can also buy the people, As the last speaker, you really have to look at the notes, What I will do is, I will, the fact is I agree with most of what my fellow colleagues has been talking about. I would divide my presentation to two parts. One is, what are the issues around or surrounding parliamentary reform? And then towards the end, I will go deep into one or 2 points. Mainly was already taken by Yang Bernama Anthony. I must also inform you that there are at least two groups working on parliamentary reform. One is not directly about parliamentary reform, but was interviewing MPs back in 2011. Not all MPs responded, but I was a one-term MP for Temerloh at that time. I was one of those who responded. I think Tong and Anthony was also the other two who responded to a project conducted by Deborah Lowe and Jacqueline Ansurin, if you remember. Yeah, and then they come up with a book entitled Understanding the Dewan Rakyat. And they came up with some interesting expressions, or rather anecdotes from some MPs. The other important work is the one led by Saifuddin Abdullah. Of course, most people know Maria as the chair of Bersih, now Bersih 4. But he was leading a group of about 11 NGO, and these 11 NGOs were supported by the Bar Council and my organization, the Global Movement of Moderates. And this group formed themselves and called themselves the Parliamentary Reform Proposal Group, where in March this year have actually made a press conference and has actually do briefing to MPs to come up with a 4-point proposal called Towards a People-Centered Parliament. So I'll be quoting around this area plus other personal experience as an MP from 2008 to 2013. Now, let me then say this. Rafizi was talking about many people are feeling helpless. I think besides helplessness, I think there are lots of cynicism, there are lots of sarcasm, there are lots of anger, and there are lots of hatred. I don't have the data unless Merdeka Center and UMC Dell were to reveal what they have found out in the last few weeks, but I can tell you, I think there is a clear sign of trust deficit from the people toward the government of the day. And the government of the day is facing the trust deficit at an all-time high. Never before the trust deficit is this very high. Why is the trust deficit very high? Well, the simple answer is because people are no longer stupid. Yeah. And because of that, I think we must seize the moment. People want change, but I also agree with the fact that I think we need a holistic change. We need a total reform, especially when it comes to institutional reform. I just give you an example to allude to what YB Chin Tong was saying. Pemandu. Now, I have a lot of, Idris is my good friend, all right? We will miss him when he retire. But the point is not about Idris. The point is, we followed the UK system when it comes to government, the civil service. We followed the UK system. But the UK system has been reformed at least twice through two parliamentary white papers. Once during Thatcher, another one was during Blair. Yeah. But we have not reformed our civil service. There are some good people in the civil service, like some of them, 7 or 9 of them in the MACC. They are good people. Yeah. But we need to motivate them, and we need to upgrade the system. But the past 2 prime ministers did not take serious consideration in upgrading the system, but rather surpass the system or bypass the system. Hence, you have Pemuda during the time of Abdullah Badawi, and you have Pemandu during the time of Datuk Seri Najib. I think what is needed is, and I'm sure the civil servants are awaiting this. They know they can play a better role, better than paying millions of ringgit to foreign consultants, because we know there are good civil servants out there. Yeah. So we need to do that. Now, what are the kind of reform that we need before we can actually do parliamentary reform per se? Of course, a basic point would be, how do we arrive at parliament? We cannot have a good parliament if the system where you go through in order for you to arrive at the parliament is so lopsided. I'm talking here about, to ensure a good parliament system, you have to have a good election system. And to have a good election system is to have a clean and fair election. Yeah? The problem is some people got so allergic to the term bersih that you have a Department of Education making this circular that school students from Penang are not allowed to, join the Merdeka Parade. Yeah. So Chief Minister Guan Eng now make this announcement that the motto for Penang is actually Bersih Cekak Amanah, which is actually BN campaign a mantra during the time of Mahathir. Yeah. 1982. Wow, his first time he was leading the BN to the GE. Now, so we need to do that. We need to address the issues of gerrymandering. We need to address the issue of malapportionment. Yeah, there was some hope when the High Court in Sarawak asked the Election Commission to redo or to revisit the delimitation process for the state of Sarawak, but we are all very frustrated because the Court of Appeal turned down that decision. The next point is about separation of power between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. In fact, we were discussing this with some people a couple of nights before. Perhaps together with parliamentary reform, you need to do judiciary reform. Because you must remember, there are certain things that happens in parliament can actually later on be decided at the courts of law. So we have to be careful. We have to be wary of the fact that it is not just about the parliament, it is also about the judiciary. The third point is, I made this statement earlier. We say that the Dewan Negara, the upper house, is a rubber stamp. But in some instances, even the Dewan Rakyat, the lower house, is also like a rubber stamp. Yeah. because the House cannot decide its own agenda. It's all decided by the Cabinet or the Executive. And of course, this may not be a very good point, but I still want to say it. Sometimes you may want to ask, why the heck you debate in Parliament? You apply your arts of persuasion, like Rafizi, he was twice a best speaker when he was in high school before. In 92 and 93, betul ya? Something like that lah. Yeah. And yet, he have to subscribe to the fact that he can just, he just have to accept the fact that there will be block voting. And whatever he said, doesn't make any, it's not going to be material. Would our parliament ever see the day when MPs can actually vote based on their conscience? It has never actually happened in our context. Sotinadan, when he was Secretary of Parliament or Parliamentary Secretary, did not vote against the government. He simply asked a question to a government front bench and got suspended for 3 months. Okay. Saifuddin Abdullah, Kari Jamaluddin, and Gan Peng Siu, two were deputy ministers and one was MP in the last parliament, got censored because outside parliament we made press statements not in agreement with the amendment to, at that time, the latest amendment to Section 114A of the Evidence Act. Yeah. So Tan Sri Muhyiddin called myself and Gan Peng Siu. KJ was called by, I don't know, but yeah, we all three of us were censored. So never mind about voting. Yeah, you are just saying something not according to the party line. Now, what about actual parliamentary reform? I agree with all that Yang Muhammad Anthony was saying, except to add 1 or 2 points here and there. For instance, on the standing committee, I think we must also come up with a participatory law-making process guideline. Because otherwise you can have a standing committee, but if the standing committee have a majority BN MPs, it's not going to be a very participatory process. So we need to have a guideline. Denmark has come up with a system where the Minister of Law actually prepared a guideline. This was like, I think, about a decade ago, that before a bill is brought to Parliament, to the floor, by the minister in charge, it went through certain processes. And that processes is well written in a certain specific guideline. From ideation to and anyone can actually bring up an idea for a new bill. Anyone can actually volunteer to form a committee, and this is still outside the Parliamentary Standing Committee. Do your roundtable discussion, do your town hall meetings, and then what you need to do is to sponsor an MP or to talk to an MP, or you may want to talk to the government and say, look, we have something quite concrete. We even have a draft of the bill or something to that effect, and we want this to be brought to Parliament. Then it goes through the relevant standing committee, and the standing committee can again do consultation with other people. Now the point is, there is a clear guideline that allow the widening of the decision-making process. I think we need to do that to ensure that it is not just about adding standing committees, but to ensure it is going to be a good deliberation within the standing committees. Now, the other point I want to add on is on the agenda setting, or YB Anthony was using the term order of business. Number one, we need to ensure the opposition establish a proper shadow cabinet. Yeah. You want to have a good executive, you also have to have a good opposition shadow cabinet. Our young brother was talking about the role of the opposition leader during his presentation before we started the forum. We need to do that also. I still think we need to do Prime Minister's question time. I hope Anthony Loke, YB, will still lobby for that. And even if you don't have Prime Minister's question time, you have Minister's question time, you must also make sure, this is difficult to evaluate, but we must ensure there will be quality replies by the Minister. Because today, a Minister sitting in Parliament have three choices. Number one, he doesn't have to answer. Yeah, actually the standing order allows the Minister to remain seated. He doesn't have to answer. The Speaker will just say, Menteri, nak jawab ke tidak? Minister, do you want to answer or not? And he can just smile. Yeah, he can. Number two, he can stand up and answer. And number three, he can just stand up and answer, jawapan bertulis. I will answer by writing. Yeah. Now that's not quality parliament. I think quality parliament is when the minister must reply on the spot and ask for answer in writing only for very detailed. Yeah, not any question also. You know. I hope we can have metrics to see how many ministers answer in the form of, Mr. Speaker, I will answer in writing, and then you will see the quality of the answers. The other thing is, of course, the role of Parliament MPs as the role of MPs as lawmakers. I agree with the point earlier by my fellow colleagues that we need to educate the public. The problem with our public is, it's not their problem because we have never educated them. We have never educated them on the role of MPs as lawmakers. Yeah. If you are an MP from a constituency within, say, 1 hour and a half or 2 hours from Parliament, you may think that you are very lucky because you are an MP of a constituency that is very near to Parliament. But I can tell you from experience, you are not actually very lucky. Because they will always phone you and say, Dean, can you come back for this one or not? Can you come back for this one or not? Hey, you know, this Longkang got blocked, you know. Yeah. And you can't tell them, can you please talk to the member of the local council? They won't buy that answer. They want you to be there. Yeah. And even if you say, you know, I have this thing, and they say, look, it's only 1.5 hours, you know, from KL. Surely you can come back. Yeah. But if you are an MP like Azalina, the good friend of Rafizi, she is her constituency is apa ini hujung dunia tu? Pangerang, and that's 4-hour drive. Now she is quite lucky because she won't get that kind of phone call because people cannot say, Azalina, you come back lah. You know, just you cannot say it's only 1.5 hours because it's 4 hours. Yeah. So some MPs, if you are staying far away, if your constituency is far away from KL, you know, it's tougher for you to go back to KL to Parliament, but you don't get that kind of phone call. Now, I think most of our constituents do not really understand the fact that MPs are, by definition, lawmakers. I think the late Kapal Singh is one of those lucky ones because his constituents understand that. I was reading somewhere that one day Kapal was doing the round, you know, going to some of the coffee shop, blah blah blah, and then the people will say that, hey Kapal, don't worry lah, you know, we are not voting because you show your face lah. Yeah, we are voting you because you are a good lawmaker. Not many MPs got that kind of credit from his or her constituent. So we definitely have to do more about it. Now, my last point when it comes to actual parliamentary reform is about allocation for MPs, which no one have touched. There are two things here. Number one, I think we need real allocation that can assist MPs to do their work, like research assistants for their office in their constituencies and so on and so forth. But I've said this while I was MP, I think we don't need allocation as we have now for MPs, like 1 million ka, 1.5 million ka, or now announced next year for Barisan MP, you can get 5 million in 1 year. Yeah. Now, I think those allocations should actually go to the district office, should go to local council, and so on and so forth. I don't think MPs should have any business looking after this kind of allocations. Unfortunately, our Pakatan Rakyat state also have allocation for state assemblyman. But I must give credit to, I'm not sure whether this is Selangor or Penang, or both. I think they did offer some allocation to opposition aduns, but smaller lah. So I was asking some MPs from Penang, I think I asked YB Zairil, how much are you giving to the your opposition aduns in Penang? A small number, I can't remember. So I asked him, why so small compared to what you get? And then she laughed on the phone and said, well, at least we are doing better than you. I said, okay, I got your point. Yeah. So I think we have to relook at all these things if we are serious about doing parliamentary reform. My last point, I think this is where I agree with all of the other speakers. If you think we can do parliamentary reform simply based on what we have today, the mindset, the culture, the way we look at parliament, the way legislation is passed or bulldozed sometimes, the way the executive control parliament, I'm not very optimistic. I come from a party that, to the best of my knowledge, and as much as I can remember, we don't really talk about parliamentary reform. Yeah.
You don't talk about reform.
I'm trying to be politically correct. Yeah. So I think we need some rethinking in the real sense of the word, and perhaps we need some external forces that can force upon parliamentary reform, either by sending better MPs to Parliament, whichever way you want to interpret that. Yeah. I mean, MPs who believe in reform, or MPs from political parties who believe in reform. Yeah. Or reform must be forced upon, and what I mean by forced upon is people in Parliament or government, the executive in particular, have got no choice, but they have to do it because the people are calling for that real reform of the parliamentary system. Thank you.